is live on YouTube. Is it live on YouTube? Come on. Stream offline. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, yay. This is working out. Okay, so I think we're... Yes. I'm going to just check on my phone as well. And also... just to make sure the audio is okay, working. Yes. And also go live on Facebook. Hi guys, just give us a second. This is a surprise. Usually these Patron discussion. By the way, can you introduce yourself to us while I fix everything?
Well, what do you need to know? My name is Lois Edwards. I'm I live in Calgary, or near Calgary, Alberta, not in. I'm retired, and my main activity now is our Atheist Society of Calgary and many of the programs that we're doing.
Nice. And what program? By the way, and also you're a secular jihadist patron, and this is one of the secular jihadist patron discussions. So thank you so much for supporting the show. And also, we're planning on a speech like with me in Calgary with your society. Is that correct?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's it. Pretty.
Yes. We're excited about that.
So yeah, and what is that like? What do you guys do? Like you guys set events and have speakers come in. And are you familiar with Atheist Republic Consulate in Calgary? Are you?
A little bit. I'm not. I know that there is one, but I don't know an awful lot about it.
Would you? Okay, maybe I'll would you be interested if I add you to that group?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so you, I saw you in Toronto, by the way. You come to a lot of the events. You're very active in the atheist community, so thank you so much for that. We had one discussion before, so some of our patrons might already know you. You were a co-host in one of our previous episodes. So what are some topics that you wanted to discuss today?
Well, I really wanted to talk a little bit about our Atheist Society of Calgary, because we're doing some really neat things, and I want other people to know that they can do it in their own cities. You and Ali and other guests have often talked about community and how important it is to have community, and that is one of the main purposes of our ASC, Atheist Society of Calgary. To provide community for non-believers, because that's one of the big things that's often missing. And so we have created quite a few different kinds of activities, so that there'll be something for everybody. So nobody is going to participate in every single one.
Right.
But for example, okay, I've got a list of them. We have Skeptics in the Pub once a month, and that's just where people gather to get together and talk, and we'll have a short sort of video or something to sort of stimulate discussion, and then just relax and enjoy each other's company. And people who don't like pubs in the evening, we have a non-believers Sunday brunch one Sunday morning a month. And we also have a movie night, usually about once a month, where we see a movie and then have a discussion based on that movie. The movie we're going to see next week, I believe, is Leaving My Father's Faith. It's about, well, the father is a person who is a very well-known evangelist, and his son was following in his footsteps until he realized he couldn't believe it any longer and left the faith. So it's a discussion between those two.
So here's a question: Is there a lot of disagreement? Is disagreement and different political views tolerated in these groups? Because I just recently, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, got kicked out of Vancouver Skeptic in the Pub.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, no, it's totally open. I mean, everybody's welcome. I mean, if you got abusive or something, yeah, then be kicked out. But no other reason. I mean, we have differences of opinion, and we feel like that's important.
I'm gonna. I don't know. I was very polite. I'm gonna actually do a video review of all the comments that were exchanged in the group, to see if I was out of place. Because I think, I mean, if I said anything that was deserved me being kicked out, I want people to point it out to me. So I'm gonna do a video review of it. I'll send you a link to it once I do.
Okay.
Basically, I was promoting my event in Vancouver, and the name of the event is "We Must Defeat Islam." So they were like calling me bigots, xenophobe, dog. Say this was a dog whistle, and eventually they kicked me out. So if in your group, like Skeptic in the Pub that you have, if somebody comes and talks about the evils of Islam, would they be kicked out of the group or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
Right.
No, a large, or many people in the group, at least the ones I've talked to, are sort of in the position like you are, so totally frustrated with the regressive left. And so no, it's the main idea is acceptance, and we are kind of very frustrated with the regressive left. So
that's interesting, because my view was that the groups that call themselves skeptic are mostly have a very left leaning, and they don't accept it's nothing wrong with being left leaning as long as you also accept right leaning people.
Oh, absolutely. No, this group is very inclusive, and no, there'd be nothing like that. And the reason for the name Skeptics is just because for years there's been this concept of skeptics in the pub.
Right.
And it's for everyone: skeptics, humanists, atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, you name it. But the main thing is acceptance, and within the group, within our board for the society, we have some fairly extreme differences of opinion, but we encourage that, we invite that.
Okay.
And actually, we have a couple other. I haven't finished the list.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you. Let's go through this.
Okay. No, I think it's important to mention those things. But we also have a book club for people that like that. We have a thing called Take a Hike. One of our members does a lot of hiking in the mountains, and he leads hikes with people. And then we also have these special events almost every month. Special speakers, and we have a Darwin Day in February, Sagan Day in November. Summer and winter solstice, we have a big dinner and karaoke and amateur entertainment, and just a lot of fun. Silent auction, and then we sell trinkets. The Darwin fish and all that. And so there's really something for everybody.
That's a lot of activities.
Well, but see, we don't expect everybody to go to all of them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like you could pick and choose based on what you.
Right, but yet you're still part of the group and included in the group. And but there's one very, very special one I've got to tell you about. And I happen to lead this group. It's called Life Without Religion, and it's a sort of a closed support group for people who are currently dealing with or have in the past dealt with some serious issues caused by leaving a fundamentalist religion. And like in our little tiny group, we have 4 ex-pastors who are now. Yeah.
How many people in your group?
I think on the list now there's about 18. We only get 8, 10, 12, in a meeting. We have a meeting once a month. We found a private room in a restaurant, which works beautifully because then we can talk freely. And even for people that, one person, if anybody that she works with knew that she attended, she'd probably lose her job. So it's a safe place for people who are really dealing with some serious issues. And you'd think that in the 21st century Canada that you wouldn't have that, but boy, you would not believe, the people whose families.
Wouldn't that be a legal case to try to challenge? Like, can we get her to announce that she is her views, and then see what the reaction is to it, and bring some lawyers into the discussion after she gets fired?
Well, there's family involvement. There's all sorts of things,
Oh yeah.
and it would be, it'd be far too much. She's just going to try to, you know, ease her way out. But I mean, I left a job many years ago,
Yeah.
same reason. Uh, but it's not worth it, quite frankly. Um,
But
but
sorry.
go ahead.
What would you say to people that say, "Oh, you guys are just like a religion. You're getting together. You have activity. You have community. You're basically making your own church now. You're turning atheism into a religion." How would you respond to people like that?
Well, I would say that religion stole the concept of community, that it's a basic human need,
Right.
and religions usurped it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so we are just providing a human need with no strings attached. If you're in a religion, and I've been there, done that, there are strings attached.
Exactly.
In other words, you have to be able to mouth the rhetoric and do all the right things and associate with the right people. And those strings attached reduce the effectiveness. And when you have a community that's accepting of anything, like we have a gay married couple. They're just super guys. We just love them. And, everything, atheists seem to accept everybody and everything.
Well, I don't know. I want to. Okay, so good. We have our first disagreement now.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's a disagreement. It might be a disagreement. I have a. Tell me if my concern is you know, if I'm right to be concerned or not. I don't want to suggest ever that atheists are better people. My activism, what I'm trying to do is normalize atheism, to suggest that atheists are, not less. They are not evil. They shouldn't be discriminated against. They shouldn't be ostracized just for being atheists. But I don't want to go beyond that and suggest that atheists are better.
Right. No, I totally get that. People are who they are regardless.
Right.
Can I tell you, it's not funny, it's sort of a joke about Christians. A guy that when I was in grad school, he was in grad school in Near Eastern languages and literature, and he's a minister and a teacher. He was a professor in a Christian college, but he told us how there was this crotchety little old lady, and nobody liked her because she was so miserable to be around, just crotchety as she could be. But one day she came to church and heard a sermon about the love of Jesus and how you need to give your life to him, and so she did, and she became she accepted Christ in her life, and from that day on, she was a crotchety old Christian. In other words, you don't change. You are who you are.
Right.
And being a Christian or being an atheist or being whatever doesn't change who you are.
Right.
But being an atheist makes you realize that you don't have to be restricted by religious beliefs.
It can, yeah.
The people that are prejudiced against gays, against all sorts of things, are the Christians or the religious people.
Mostly, yeah. But
And it's not entirely, but I mean, they are. Well, it goes back to that. There are bad people that do bad things, and there are good people that do good things. And the one thing that can make good people do bad things is religion.
Yeah, I think that would be the best way to sum it up.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is that what I usually compare it to when it comes to atheism, what I say to atheists is that there's one question right? One question, like whether is there evidence for the existence of God? The answer is no. And we think that we got that question answered right. But that doesn't mean just because we got that question, which is a pretty simple one, I think, right?
Yeah.
I just because we got that one right, that doesn't mean that suggests we got other questions, right? Like all of us probably have a lot of other views that are not correct as well. But
absolutely.
the reason why we focus on our atheism a lot is because our atheism is used as a way to target us. Like as atheism is, I think identity politics does not make sense in any way when it's used to try to ask for advantages, ask for better treatment. But identity politics does make sense when your identity is used as a target, right? So, for example, if you say I belong to this group, so treat me better, that makes no sense. But if you say I belong to this group and they're after people in this group, so please help me out, then that makes sense. So I'm not ready to throw out all forms of identity politics. If I'm living in Nazi Germany and you come at my door and say I'm a Jew, please hide me in your basement. Like, I'm not gonna be like, what does your identity got to do with this? Why are you? No, because they're after that identity, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense because you're being targeted. So I think the main thing about atheists, the reason why we need to get together is because lack of faith is seen as demonized and we are seen as inferior. It's the same thing with gay rights movement. Like gay people don't have much in common other than the fact that they're gay. Some of them are religious, some of them are atheists, some of them are right wing, some of them are left wing, some of them don't care about politics. But the gay rights movement is about them and people that are not gay also getting involved and saying it's not okay to discriminate people for being gay. And the interesting thing is that you could be gay and not part of the gay rights movement, and you could be straight and part of the gay rights movement, right? And again, with the atheist movement, I think you could be an atheist that is not part of the atheist movement because you don't care, or you could be a religious person and part of the atheist movement because you might be a religious person that says, you know what, I don't think atheists should be discriminated against, and I want to participate in making sure that doesn't happen. So you might be a very religious person that is part of the atheist movement, which I know actually people
I could see that. There aren't any fundamentalists who feel that way, but but that's true. That's true.
Right.
And actually, our society, our atheist society of Calgary, we debated quite a while about a name, and some people said, well, you put atheist in there, and there'll be a negative reaction, and our final conclusion was that we want to normalize the word atheist.
Good. Thank you for that.
Show people that, hey, we're people, that we care, and we want to improve our community.
Right.
So anyway, that was one of our main reasons.
Good. I'm glad you decided that, because that's the exact, when they say if we use atheist, that people are going to have a negative reaction to it. Well, that's the reason why we should use that, because that shouldn't be the case. It's the same thing as like the slut walk, right? Because people are using the exact labels to shame people. They're like, you know what? We're gonna own it. Like, fuck you for trying to demonize that. We're gonna own this label, right?
That reminds me. When I was a little kid, I gotta tell you this funny story. Little girls, little boys like to tease little girls with snakes and stuff. And so I turned it out. So some little guy would come up to me, we used to have garter snakes all over the place, and they'd come up with a snake chasing me, and I'd say, "Oh, can I see it?" and reach out to take it, and that just kind of burst their bubble.
That's funny.
But I mean, that's the same idea. Own it. Just own it. Yeah.
Right. And you say that you have 18 people, and with only 18 people you manage to do so much, because I see a lot of people try to do local groups and meetups, and
that 18 is just in my Life Without Religion group.
Oh, okay.
In our overall society, there's more.
How many is there?
Well, on the meetup list, there's over 100, but there's not that many. I would say there's about, Skeptics in the Pub, we might have 25 or 30 coming.
But I usually tell people that, you tell me if I'm right about this or not, but a lot of people don't get, like, we have some cities, like we have Atheist Republic consulates to encourage people to meet up face to face all around the world, like, right? But sometimes people, like, some cities are very active. Like In Mexico, there are many cities in Mexico that is very active. Very active. In India, we have a lot of active groups in many cities. In Philippines, the Manila group is one of the most active ones. Egypt, many groups. But there are some other groups that they have like 4 active members, right? And they're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, what's the point? There's not that many of us, but I think you could do a lot with just 4 people. Like you don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
to look at those bigger groups and to get discouraged. I think even you only need actually just another person. It could just be 2 people. Just you get out there, just the 2 of you, have some drinks, talk, take a picture, post it in the group, and that could be an encouragement for next time to more people to join. You
Right.
could do a lot with just 2 people, right? You have to get the ball
Yeah.
rolling. So
You,
even
you, yeah, you need a sort of a spark plug, somebody with sort of leadership that can get things going, and then it just grows.
right, and it might be slow, very
Yeah.
slow, but don't but it will get, if you keep at it, it will grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, one of my biggest frustrations with our Life Without Religion group is that I know there's people out there that really need the support,
Right.
but people that are leaving a religion are usually closeted and they don't tell anybody and they don't talk about it, so we don't know who they are.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I want to try to work on is how do we reach the people that need a support group but don't know it exists.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So what else do you have in your list? Question.
Well, those are the well, I don't know if you have any interest in my own background. I'd be
No. Yeah. Please. I have.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was born and raised in a extremely fundamentalist religion,
Okay.
a small Protestant denomination called the Church of the Nazarene. And my both my mother and father worked at the Nazarene Publishing House. We lived in Kansas City, which was the international headquarters of the denomination.
Wow.
And it was, well, the rules we lived by very, very strict rules. I mean, like I wasn't allowed to go to shows in a theater. I wasn't allowed to go to dances. I mean, there were drinking and smoking were evil, and so that's the way I grew up. And it was just assumed that I would go to a church college. The Church of the Nazarene has about 8 or 10 colleges. And when I say college, in the U.S., college means four-year undergraduate. So I went to a Nazarene college. And, it's interesting. The whole time growing up, I had a lot of doubts. But I just simply would not allow myself to think about it, to dwell on it. And I was also extremely shy. And so I knew that I was kind of safe within the sort of closed group. So anyway, my doubts increased, but I just kept at it and went to grad school. I ended up, would you believe, I was teaching. I was a professor in a Christian.
Oh shit! What happened? You guys still there? Okay, let's see if I could call her back. But let me know if I'm still live. Let me know if we're still live with you guys. Lois isn't online. We got lost the connection. Are we still live with you guys? Yes, we are. Okay, let me try calling her again. Come on. What happened? Ooh. That's weird. Okay. Let me keep trying. Alright, while we wait for that. I'm gonna see if I can get somebody else, the next patron that was supposed to be coming up, but I don't know what happened. That was getting very interesting. What I'm gonna do? Can you guys hear me? Let me see if I could get the next patron on a little bit earlier. Renzo. Create a group chat. Renzo. Okay, he's gonna be surprised why I'm calling this early. Oh. Wait, I'm getting a call. How do I... What do I do? Oh, there we go. Wait, go back there. I don't know, am I getting a call or am I... Oh, hey, Renzo is here.
Hello.
Hi, Renzo. So, I'm calling you a little bit early because I was having a call with Lois, and we were live on air, and she got disconnected, right?
Oh.
So by the way, you're live right now. So
Yes.
Don't say anything private. So I was wondering if you want to start a little bit earlier.
I'm live, but I'm not dressed right now, so can I take a couple of minutes to...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I surprise call you live. This is...
Yes.
Yes, sorry. How do I hide the... Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just mute this if you want. How do I... So, whenever you get a call from me, guys, just be ready. You might be live on air. Don't say anything private. Okay, that's sad that we lost Lois. Hopefully she'll come back. I don't know what happened to her connection. Let me see if I could reach out to her on Facebook. Yeah, I'm gonna go on Facebook, send her a message. Lois Edward. It's getting... Must be a connection issue from her end. Okay, let me just read what if Renzo had anything specific he wanted to talk about. Oh, Lois is saying, Lois is calling. Here, I'm gonna call her back here.
Hi.
Hi. Hello?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh,
Can you turn on your camera?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Okay, so Renzo is here as well, which is the next patron, but he's putting his clothes on. But go on, you were talking about your life story.
Who was I when you lost me? Do you remember?
You said nobody expected you to go to a non-Christian school.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if you were a kid going to college, you definitely went to a Nazarene college. which I did. And like I said, I always had doubts. I just never let myself dwell on them. And to make a long story short, I went to grad school and I started teaching in a Christian college. And it was while I was there that some life experiences kind of made me start the questioning up and accept the fact that I couldn't believe anymore. So there I was, a professor in a Christian college where you could only teach there if you were, a believer.
Right.
And are we connected?
Yeah, we are.
And so I had to figure out how to support myself and get away from teaching in that college. So I had, it was a good 2 years. I had to essentially live a lie and not admit that I had become an atheist, and just try to find a way to leave.
Was that hard to do?
Living in a lie was miserable.
Wow.
Because I didn't believe anything that was going on. I didn't believe in anything that was going on there, and I hated it. But I got a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Calgary, and that's why I ended up here in Alberta.
Nice.
And so I just left everything behind except my immediate family and started my life over.
When was this?
Oh, this was many, many years ago.
And did you became an open atheist, like openly announced that you're an atheist?
I don't think I used the word atheist at first. I openly announced that I was not able to believe anything anymore. I considered myself a non-believer. But the thing that made me finally get very active was actually reading the book Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Oh, wow.
I read that book, and I mean, it just did me in. And I said, what in the world am I doing? I've had the experience. I know what it's like, to be well, leaving your religion and your community and starting your life over. Here's this woman whose life is in danger. She's bodyguards 24/7, but she's out there, and she's talking and writing and crusading. And I said, what am I doing? So that's when I started looking for a way to get active in the movement, and it's been fantastic. It's been wonderful. I love it. I love my life.
And have you ever met Ayaan?
No, I haven't. I would give anything to meet her.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the book really changed my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Did you eventually tell your family that you're an atheist, and how did they respond if you did?
Well, my family was different. We have always been nice to each other, but never confrontational, and never really open. And they knew that I left the college and that I wasn't going to church here. And, shortly after I moved to Calgary, my father passed away. But we never talked openly, but I know that my poor dear sister, who's still a very devoted Christian, I know she worries. I know it just really upsets her. But I think that's the thing that makes me the most angry about religion, is that good people, really wonderful people, suffer. Because, she believes that I'm going to burn in hell. And she shouldn't have to go through that. And, but then, my mom passed away too. I think my mom knew, but I think if she had had the chance, she might have been a rebel.
Oh, really?
She never, yeah. So she never said anything. But, I have a common law partner, and everybody knows that. And there are those that stay away from me, like people I've tried to friend on Facebook, and they don't respond. And anyway, most people
Yeah.
keep their distance. But I really, I just kind of left everything. I moved essentially to a different country and just started my life over again completely.
Yeah. Sorry. From where to where? To Calgary. From where again? Was it?
The college where I taught was in Michigan.
Okay. Why did you? Okay. Yeah. So because you got an offer from Calgary, and that's why you
Right.
moved to Calgary. All right. That's pretty cool. By the way.
Hello.
Hi, Renzo.
Hello.
Hi.
Lois is the name, right? You.
Lois, yes.
Lois. Okay.
Yeah.
I may have missed this part, but when was the moment you really started to doubt your religion? What was that spark that you thought this is not?
It's actually strange. I always had some doubts, but I suppressed them, even when I was a young kid and even in high school. But I just kept suppressing them because I think there were two main reasons. My incredible respect for my father. He was the most amazing, wonderful human being in the world, but he was a devout Christian, and I just, hurting him was just something I couldn't do. And also, I was extremely shy. I had no self-confidence, and I knew that I could survive in the Christian community. They had to accept me. They didn't have a choice. And I knew I could survive. I didn't know if I could survive outside of that community. So I think those are the two main reasons that kept me in for many, many years, even though I was doubting the whole time.
So
I recognize that in myself. I was raised non-religious, both in my family and in my country are very non-religious. But I did share those features that you described. That suppressing doubt about things I believe, not religiously, but politically, ideologically, and the lack of self-confidence. And I think those two fuel each other. You start to suppress doubt because you want to build an identity for yourself that you can be proud on, and that people around you believe in, be accepted. It took a while before I started to embrace doubt, and I think really you studying at university has helped me to study and live in that kind of environment where doubt is really the central kind of mentality of your profession.
I went to graduate school in the University of Michigan, huge university, but yet I still kept, I don't know if I should say believing because I was doubting, but I still stayed within the religious community.
Yeah.
So tell us, Renzo, what made you start? Do you think is certain personalities, because it seems like Luis, I keep saying Luis or Luis? Lois, the shorter one, Lois. Yeah, everybody says Luis, but then so Lois. Do you think there are certain personalities that are more likely to, do you think it's mostly the environment, or there are some, because you started that even though you were in an environment where doubt was discouraged, you were still doubting, so it couldn't be your environment where you encouraged you. Do you think there's something genetical behind it, or there's some type of personalities that are just more likely to rebel or to question authority or to question their views? Both of you could.
I do think so. I think that this is going to sound strange. I do think that it's genetic to some degree. But here's my sister. In fact, I wrote a short blog on sisters, and how in some ways we're exceptionally different, but yet in some ways we're alike. But yet she is just as devout, and I don't know if she ever questioned. And I always did. But yet I still think, that there's something in genetics, sisters can be quite different, that, you just have a tendency to lean towards independent thinking and a different attitude, a different sort of view of the world around you. I really do think there's something, practically born in you.
did you ever talk about her? Did you ever try to convince her that God doesn't exist and that fundamentalism is wrong? Or?
No, I haven't. I mean, my sister still lives in Michigan.
Okay.
And our family was just so strange. We never talked about things.
Oh.
We would discuss kind of philosophical, impersonal things.
Yeah.
But we never talked about serious things ever. I kind of lived inside my own mind much of my life. You know, just doing my own thinking, but never sharing it with anybody.
Yeah. Well, my father was raised in a very devout Protestant Christian family as well, and that's I recognize this, that there was never really much conversation within my father's family. Yeah.
Because we were always, quote, nice to each other. We are very proper and polite within the family.
Yeah.
But never really discussed things.
Yeah. I see that when I visit my father's family. It's
really?
They're always nice to each other, but you feel kind of tension underneath every conversation.
Tell us about your journey, Renzo. Like, how did you become an atheist?
Well, I was raised in a very non-religious family. My mother was. She was from a non-religious family. My father was raised a Protestant, Dutch Reformed, very pretty fundamentalist in this very enclosed Bible Belt community, and my father's first wife was also a very devout Christian, and he had to leave the church before he could marry my atheist mother. So
oh wow,
there was a very and they used this sort of, I don't know if they really hated him for it, but he got a lot of fuss with his family. Yeah.
So he remained a Christian, but he loved your mother so much that that he decided to abandon the church because of her?
Well, no, he became less religious in his adult life, and the same is true with his younger brother.
That's very romantic. Kind of romantic that you abandon your church for love. No?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess it does. So I was never taught much religion. I was taught a little bit about it. I read some stories in the Bible, but I never took them that seriously as if they had really happened. And by the time I got to high school and started learning about evolution and that kind of stuff and science, then I thought, yeah, this makes way much more sense. So right. It wasn't. I didn't have to pay a very high price for my identity, and not all my friends in high school were very kind of militant atheists, kind of Dawkins Harris kind of types, you could say. So there was an environment in which being an atheist is a very easy choice to make.
So it was easy for you. The transition was easy for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So, but the thing is that it's based. I mean, a lot of people that the transition is easy for them. I'm glad that you're open about it. Like you announced that you're an atheist. You're openly atheist, right? So, because a lot of people that don't have a hard, difficult transition, when they meet people that it's more difficult for them to be openly atheist, I'm hoping what they see is that even though the transition was easy for them being open about their atheism helps people that the transition is not that easy, right? It normalizes it, right? So the example is that if you come out as gay, and if you're gay and you think it's not a big deal, your family doesn't think it's a big deal, nobody around you in your environment thinks it's a big deal, so you don't think, why should I make my this is such a non-issue. If you're you might think that this is such a non-issue that why should I even announce that I'm openly gay? My life is more than my sexuality, right? I am way above my sexual orientation. So why should I tell people that I'm gay? Well, then, but the reason why I would encourage you to say you're gay is because even though in your circle and in your environment is normalized, in many places it's not, right? So the more openly gay people are out there, the more you're helping to normalize it. So yes, is for you it might seem like you're making too much of a big deal out of something that is not everything that your life is about, but you are helping. If you are open about it, you're helping to make the same environment for other people, right? So a lot of people say, yeah, I'm an atheist, but I don't think it's a big deal. Why should I even tell people I'm an atheist? Well, because it's a big deal in many other places. And if you announce that you're an atheist, you're helping those other places also transition into a place slowly where, into an environment where being atheist is not a big deal, right? So that's what I say, right?
Yeah, that's very true. The same with both my atheism and my sexuality. It's where I come from. It's so common sense almost that you don't really even think about it. About coming out of the closet.
Where are you? Where are you? Which location is that?
I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and now I live and study in Belgium.
Oh wow! So yeah, you're at the heart of atheist land, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's why? So you say there were a lot of hardcore militant atheists there, but correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that in places where religion is not that big of a deal, atheist activism is also not that big of a deal, because people don't see the need for atheist activism. Is that correct, or is that not right?
Yeah, in general it is. I don't think that kind of militant atheism that me and my friends shared is that widely shared. Most people are kind of ambivalent about they don't really think about religion, so they also don't take into account the fact that some people religion that some people still care deeply about religion, like Muslim minorities.
Right. This is why we get a lot of activism in countries like Pakistan or India or Philippines, because atheists there, their lives are very much influenced by religion in other places.
Yeah, and it's often hard for them to understand how difficult it is and that's why people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali get kind of laughed at when they tell their story. But they say, "Oh, you're exaggerating. It's not representative for all Muslims," that kind of stuff.
Right. Actually, we were just talking about Ayaan Hirsi Ali because Ayaan was Lois's inspiration for being openly atheist, because when she read her book, The Infidel, she saw that how she's taking so much risk and she's putting herself out there. So she decided. So she was her inspiration. By the way, I don't know. Before you came here, Lois mentioned that she's the founder, right, and leader of the Atheist Calgary group.
Not the founder. I'm on the board.
On the board. Okay.
I did pretty much. I and one other person kind of created our Life Without Religion group within the organization.
Right.
But yeah, I've been on the board from the beginning when we were organizing. Yeah.
Right. By the way, Lois, did we cover your list?
Pretty much. There's one thing, and it fits right into what we're talking about right now. Well, several things are coming together. I've had some experiences recently with friends that are really, lovely people, but they're influenced by political correctness, and they want to be, totally accepting of Muslims, which we all want to be. But how do you communicate? How should we communicate to them the serious problems with the ideas? And because these are great people, but they don't know, they don't understand.
I've been trying that so much. It's hard.
I know, and I just, I just wonder how to talk to them.
I'm gonna actually do a video on that and critically examine how. Like I told you, I just recently got kicked out of Vancouver Skeptic in the pub, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to. So my explanation of. So basically, why I got kicked out because I advertised an event that I'm doing in Vancouver, in UBC, University of British Columbia. The event is called "We Must Defeat Islam," right? So I posted that in the group, and they called me racist, bigot, xenophobe. They said this is a dog whistle, and I tried to explain myself, and that explanation, there was a lot of back and forth, and eventually I got kicked out. So because I basically convinced 0 people, right? I have better luck convincing Muslims of me not meaning harm than a lot of people with leftist leanings. So the thing is that the fact that that didn't work is my fault as well, right? Because why didn't it work? So I'm gonna go through that interaction, and I'm gonna try to get people to tell me how could I, like, because I don't know. Like I think I've pretty much nailed the method of talking to Muslims, even though it doesn't always work. I think it's the best way. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think I've figured out some of the best ways of reaching out to Muslims. But I think the leftist groups are I don't know what to tell them because nothing seems to work. So I'm going to go through that and get the live chat to analyze. I'm going to do that on Atheist Republic. I'm going to get the live chat to maybe analyze how I did and what I could have done better, and maybe if I said something that I shouldn't have or something that I should have said that I didn't. Yeah, but
yeah.
I've got one idea I'd like to get some feedback on. I think for those of us who were immersed in a fundamentalist religion, regardless of what it was, we understand that people do take their beliefs exceedingly seriously. But I think sometimes people who have never really been exposed to fundamentalism simply cannot believe that anyone would believe teachings enough to go out and do jihad or whatever. And so they think, no, it can't be a religious reason. It's got to be economic or something else, simply because they cannot believe that people, super religious people, really believe that they're going to go to this reward in heaven and all that.
Right.
But people really do believe it, and it does motivate them. But how do you communicate this to someone who's never been, deeply immersed in?
Yeah, because in the West we live in a political environment, political theater, where most issues are economic to some extent. So it's very difficult, and even though it was not so long ago in the West that politics mainly was about religious strife or ideological warfare between fascism and communism or that kind of stuff. Right. No, I was done. So.
Well, what I suggest is that it's usually never just one thing, right? And when religion comes into effect, it usually takes advantage of whatever problems exist. So the problems could be political, could be economical, but when you add religion to it, it just makes everything fucking worse, right? It's not, it's, if you see it, if you look at a car, if you're like, well, is it the wheels or the engine that makes the car going forward? Well, it wouldn't go forward with either one of those things, right? So what religion does, religion grows better and takes advantage of people's frustrations. So those frustrations do feed into religion. Do feed into the problem. It's not that the economical problem or the political problem is not the issue. Is that those problems would be a lot easier to solve, not easy, but easier, if religion was not making things more complicated, right?
Yeah. Because you can't compromise on fundamentalism. If you really believe that what you are doing is wanted by God, and that if you go to heaven if you do it, and you go to hell if you don't, then you're never gonna give up. And if it's just about a piece of land or just some economic resources, you can always make a compromise. But when you add religion into the mix, that becomes much more impossible.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it's very. To me, I personally, you know, when I was a kid, I tried to avoid going to hell by killing myself and making sure I die as a child and go to heaven, right? So I know that had nothing to do with politics or economics. Like, I know firsthand experience that it was completely based on religion. There was nothing other than religion, right? And this was, and I still to this day, I think what the suicide attempt that I had was a logical conclusion based on the premises. The premises didn't make any sense, but if you had those premises, my conclusion was still solid, right? So if you really fundamentally believe in those premises, you could get some really wacky conclusions. And you know, when people tell me like, no, people do, their belief system doesn't affect their behavior, I was like, yeah, I actually kind of almost died because of it, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the reason, you may have talked about this before, but the reason you committed suicide, was that really only because you wanted to go to heaven, or because you also thought that it would benefit like other people around you or your future selves?
No.
Something
No,
like
it
a
was
sacrifice?
No, it was just... Okay, I don't know, so... Here, really quickly go over the detail because some of the people in the audience already know the story. I don't want to bore them. So, based on what we were told in school, there is no sin before the age of reason, right? So, if you girls don't sin before age 9, and your sins don't start counting until you hit the age of reason. So, there's no sinning for girls before age 9, and there's no sinning for boys before the age 15, right? Yeah. So. To me, the conclusion was that if you die before age 15, the only place you could go to is heaven, right? And I didn't want to go to hell, so I said, why wait until I become 15? I could just kill myself. You know, suicide is a sin in Islam, but there's no sin before age 15. So there's no suicide is not a sin if I do it before age 15. I actually double-checked with some of my religious teachers to make sure I got all the loophole correct, and I was right. So they you know, I got it confirmed. And then I was like, okay, so why would I stick around and basically risk going to hell? I could just give myself guaranteed heaven. So I jumped out of the 3rd floor of my, school building, right? So, so yeah, and I broke both my legs, my left arm, fractured my back, was in a wheelchair for 7 months. But there was nothing, you know, my family were well off. Political climate at that time was stable. This was just based on and in fact I was very surprised that other people didn't do this, because I was like, this is a loop. Why is nobody else doing this? This is obviously the way to heaven. But yeah, anyways, Renzo, did you have so Luis, we covered your list, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Renzo, did you have anything that you wanted to start a conversation to?
Well, I wanted to go on a little bit about doubts and the relationship with lack of confidence, because that has really troubled me up until very recently. And while I was never religious, I wanted to. I used to be pretty dogmatic as far as ideology and politics go. I first became aware of politics when I was like 15 years old. And that was in 2010, and that was at the moment of kind of twin crisis in Europe. One was the economic crisis, and the other one was the immigration issue and the rise of right-wing populism. And coming from let's say kind of modest background, from a kind of left-wing background, I knew immediately which side to take. Like my family needed the welfare state very much, so I wanted that to be sustained. So, and because it's because the left-wing package deal is that you are both in favor of the welfare state and you are pro-immigration and kind of multiculturalist. So I basically subscribe to both of those, and it took a while before I really for a while I bought into the kind of progressive leftist narrative that every critique on Islam was basically anti-Muslim bigotry. Ayaan Hirsi Ali didn't know what she was talking about. She was just babbling emotionally about her traumas in her youth, that kind of stuff, and I don't know when it was, but I don't know what made me doubt about it. I don't really remember that, but at one point I started to read more into this about Islam, about what was going on in the Middle East and in Muslim communities in the West, and that made me change my position, and initially kind of radically, to the point where I almost started to support right-wing populism, because they were the only ones talking about this. Ayaan Hirsi Ali left for the US in 2006, and still to this day there's almost no politician or intellectual in the Netherlands who really discusses this topic in a kind of serious manner. There are some exceptions to the rule, but they're not really taken very seriously. So, and it was really when I got to university, when because this was all driven by my longing for some kind of identity and to repress doubt and gain some confidence. It's kind of, this is me, this is what I stand for, and it wasn't until I got to university that I really started to embrace doubts, and that was a very painful transition to make.
Why was it painful?
Well, it caused me a lot of anxiety and depression when I first started to embrace doubt, and not always whenever I encountered a fact that was contrary to my beliefs to immediately reject it, because that was causing so much unrest and anxiety, because deep down I knew that things are more complicated and nuanced than I thought they were, but I couldn't accept that. And yeah. This is the first time I'm telling this story in kind of public, so it's kind of difficult. I hope it was it made sense to you.
So wait, so you're a member. You were a member of regressive left that you left the regressive left, right? Is that an accurate way of saying that? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you are a great person to study then. so you could answer Louis' question. Basically, she wants to know how to reach out to regressive left and change their opinion, and she should study you. And how did you manage? What was it that changed your mind?
Yes. Well, I just thought it just didn't make sense for me to be a militant atheist that was very hard on Christianity and on Zionism, but to keep defending Islam, and so even to the point where people around me were saying that Islam is a much more social and peaceful religion than Christianity. Okay. I just knew that it didn't make any sense, and then I made a mistake to go a little bit too far towards the other end of the spectrum. So kind of my political journey is kind of from left to right and back again.
Right.
That's kind of and so now I'm kind of somewhere in the middle.
So you went far right for a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were your views when you were far right?
Yeah, Yeah, this is not very easy to talk about, but of course, well, things like the link between Islam and the immigration and refugee issue, of course, that
Right.
I thought as long as we can't agree that multiculturalism has failed, and to start discussing how to deal with Islam, and what message to give to Muslim immigrants and Muslims who are born in the West, it might be the best idea to either close the borders or to restrict it to only to kind of liberal Muslims or ex-Muslims. That used to be my position for a couple of years, but
Right, but let's go to the border issue like a little bit. But I want to point out something before we do that. You know how it's more uncomfortable to talk about your right-wing positions than your left-wing positions, right? I think because the extreme right-wing positions have been more successfully marked as taboo than extreme left-wing positions. And I think we have done not a very good job at showing how disgusting extreme left positions are, right?
Maybe in North America, but in Europe, it almost seems to be the other way around. That there are a lot of right-wing positions on immigration, and that have started to become kind of common sense, especially amongst conservatives and right-wing liberals, but even to a certain extent among social democrats.
Is it talked about like in the mainstream media there?
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about immigration and integration and multiculturalism, and how it has basically failed to assimilate immigrants.
Okay, that's interesting. So, with regards to the border, what do you think, Lois? With regards to immigration, do you think where do you stand on what should be the policy towards accepting immigrants from Islamic countries? Should it be tough screening? Should be no immigration? Should it be open border? What do you think? Luis.
Was it? Lois.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What do you think? I want to see what you think and then ask both of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's extremely difficult, especially for people that have compassion. I mean, I guess the least negative thing would be really strong, examination of people's backgrounds. But I mean, part of me says we've got to let people in because their lives are just wrecked by what's happening in their home countries, and we've got to have compassion, but yet we have to be very careful and examine closely everybody's background to make sure that they're not sneaking in, bringing intended whatever jihad. Anyway, so I guess being extremely careful but letting people in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think, Renzo?
Well, the interesting thing is, and I know the European situation a little bit better than the American, but the funny thing is that both the left and the right are very critical of the current policy, and they tell two completely different stories. The left says that we have basically created what they call Fortress Europe, so that we basically built a wall around Europe that's we've made it completely impossible for any refugees or immigrants to come in, and that this is a total shame for our humanist values. And on the other hand, you have right-wingers who say that we basically are screaming that we basically have an open border policy and that millions of people are coming in every year. So and both are just a vast misrepresentation of the facts. The fact that
So what are
the
the
truth
facts?
lies. The truth lies somewhere in between. That there is no such thing as an open border policy. Especially the Italian Navy is patrolling the Mediterranean to make sure that not too many refugees are coming to Italy, and the European Union has made a deal with Turkey to ensure that Turkey prevents refugees that are in Turkey from going to Europe. So we already have a restrictive immigration policy without completely shutting
But what
the border.
about the ones that say it's already too much? What about the people that say it should be zero? You already let in too many people. And not only that, the people that were let in need to go back.
Yeah,
How would you respond to that?
well, people are coming to Europe for a reason. Like there's been a horrible civil war going on in Syria for 7 years now. So because the complete failure of like foreign governments to do some, and the United Nations to do something about it, it's not a surprise that after a while people go flee.
So, but what if they say, okay, I'm gonna put my right-wing hat on, okay?
Yeah.
What if they say that, okay, but that's not our problem. Why are we spending our tax money to help them? They fucked up their country. They deal with it. My tax money shouldn't go in fixing other people's livelihood. And also, we are changing. We're slowly completely changing the culture here. We're destroying the Western cultures that our countries were built on, and there's a huge demographic change, way too fast. There is not enough room for people to assimilate. There's, people are, this is too much change, too much fast. And what do you say to all of that?
Yeah, it's difficult because I do understand the position, because that used to be my position for some while, and I also know the progressive leftist position, so I can kind of I can look at it from both perspectives, and not just know what it is to think like it, but also how to feel like that, if that makes sense. I can feel the anger and fear from the right that.
But is the fear justified or not?
To some extent, it is. If politicians are not willing to really defend secular values, then, but that's
right. And do you have any what would you do if you were in charge? Like, would you send these people back? Would you close the borders completely? People say, forget tough restrictions. This is way too much. Look at the Pew Research. Look at the percentages. If these are true, that by 2050, we're going to have a major change. These people are going to become such major voting blocs, right? They're going to completely change the values that these countries are, run. They're going to become too influential. I mean, even if you have like 10% of the population based on these values, then they're going to become their own political party. Things are going to go backwards. There's going to be internal ethnic conflicts between these groups and other groups, because a lot of people that were native to these lands are going to see most of their problems coming from these immigrants. So there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lack of unity, a lot of internal conflict. You're already seeing the European Union, the faith in the European Union completely being destroyed a lot of countries, want to leave now the Union. UK has left, and it's all because of this immigration stuff. So why would you want? They would say, why would you want more of this? Why not just close the borders, respect the borders, and just not listen to your people and not let these people in? Haven't you had enough already? Like, what would you say? But if somebody could, yeah. Okay.
Well, I fought my my right-wing position, my fear that led to these positions with facts, and that has helped me a lot.
Okay.
So,
what are the facts?
One interesting thing, and I don't know the facts about the whole European Union, but in the Netherlands it seems that 1/3 of people right now, 4 to 5% of Dutch people are Muslim, and 1/3 of people who were raised in an Islamic family are now either ex-Muslim or liberal Muslim. So the conclusion I draw from that is that it may take 2 or 3 generations, but once the children and grandchildren of refugees go to public schools and get assimilated into secular humanist values, then over time they'll start to doubt their religion. And
but is it happening fast enough? Like, is the rate of people doubting their religion the same as the refugee people coming in?
That's tricky. Of course, I see it. Yeah, that's more difficult. But it really just depends about what foreign governments are going to do about the situation in Syria and Iraq. If they can stabilize the situation there.
But why is it their responsibility? If as a taxpayer I would be like, why are we supposed to fix other countries? Like, why is my taxpayer my taxes going into not fixing my country rather than other people's countries? Sorry, am I putting you on the spot? Sorry.
No, I want to name a couple of things. Because really the height of the refugee crisis was 2015, and since then the rate of the number of refugees that have made it to Europe has dropped significantly,
right? Because
the EU has made deals with countries like Turkey and Libya so that the governments there prevent refugees from going to Europe. So you can point out that, and specifically to British people, I would say that they shouldn't have to worry much about refugees, because even when they were in the European Union, they didn't have to participate in the spreading out of refugees. They basically had to take in 0 refugees. Same with Denmark and Ireland. Most of the immigrants that were coming to Britain are from EU countries and from Poland, Bulgaria and Romania, and it was more kind of that internal immigration that really fueled the Brexit referendum, I think,
right,
more than anything else.
So, but even with the numbers that they like, if UK if it doesn't accept any immigrants, based on the ones that they have, and they keep because they have more children than other people, their percentage is going to increase a lot. That's what they say, right? Based on Pew Research and stuff. So in other countries, even
that's what they say, but that's not. That doesn't hold up as well. I mostly know the Dutch.
Isn't that Pew Research?
I may have to look more into this, but I know the Dutch situation the best. And studies have shown from the Dutch Census Bureau that throughout the last 50 years, ever since Muslims started to immigrate to Europe, that each generation their birth rates have dropped significantly, to the point where they now almost get as much or even fewer children than the average Dutch. So I don't really worry about that either.
Moose Gal in live chat saying, as an American, I feel we should help refugees by letting them come to U.S. We also allow asylum seekers, but the Trump administration is very anti-immigration. By the way, Lois, did you want to say anything on this? Do you have any comments on this?
Well, yeah, I've been sort of mulling it over. I think to the question, you know, why should our tax money help somebody else? I mean, we're all human beings. Where's the compassion? And, you know, our species existed because we've cooperated. You know, if back in the caveman days, if we hadn't cooperated, we wouldn't exist. And so there has to be a certain amount of compassion, but there also has to be a certain amount of precaution. And that's a difficult, very difficult line to find. And I've often wondered about, you know, when refugees are brought in, how are they, what are they told, what are they taught? In other words, you know, you are welcome in our country and we'll do the best we can for you, but when you're in our country, you obey our laws. And it's sort of, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And if you break our laws, you will be punished.
So with regards oh, sorry, go on.
No, but I think, I don't know how that is communicated, but I think it should be. I mean, I have this, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans thing that I really believe is right. But yet where does humanity and precaution, where's that line? I don't know. It's difficult.
So with regards to the compassion thing, the comeback to that is like, we can be compassionate, but not with other people's money, and we can be compassionate. We are only allowed to be compassionate with our own money and resources. It's not really compassionate to get other people's money towards a cause, right? For example, if I'm a CEO of a company and I think there's a cause worth donating money to, I could use my own money to donating my money to that cause, right? But if I use a company's resources to donate to that cause, and the shareholders were like, wait, we hired you to increase profits, not to give the company's money away. If you want to donate, use your own money, not our money, right? So the shareholders might decide to fire me as a CEO because I wasted the company's resources on something other than explaining. As a CEO of a company, I'm an agent of the shareholders. This is the money that they gave to me for. This is the resources they gave to me for a certain goal, purpose, right? So the taxpayers and the citizens of a country, they're like, yes, let's be compassionate to be refugees. Let's have charity organizations. Let's have donations and help the refugees. But when the government is helping refugees, then basically you're forcing people. You're taking the government is the agent of the people. And their job is to be, they're being elected for a certain purpose. And their purpose is to take care of the citizens of this country. We can be compassionate to other peoples from other countries, but the role of the government is something else. That's not the function of this government. The function of this government is to take care of the citizens of this country. There are other avenues for us to be compassionate to people of other countries. So that would be the compact to the compassionate argument. Yeah, go on.
Well, what I would say to that is that we already give money to strangers that we haven't met through the central government and the welfare who redistributes tax money via the welfare state. So I don't see.
Well, welfare state. Well, that's for the citizens of the country, no? That's for the residents of the country, not for other countries.
Yeah, that's true.
We live in a global society now, and we might not like it, but that's the way it is. I mean, this is not a perfect world. Right. I mean, that's sort of my thing it's nothing is perfect, so we make the best of it that we possibly can. And when it comes to the compassion thing, I think, you know, a good leader and well, I don't think a country should be run like a business. Uh, but a good leader will find ways to use many different things to the advantage of the country. And, you know, also you have to look at the long range. In the long range, how can we set up a system so that these immigrants will have a positive effect? You know, it's just always look for, you know, the long range and the best of the not very good solutions, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think one of the problems we face today is that we have created a global economic system without creating a global political system. The political system has remained at the national level, and you can solve that in one or two ways. Either you decentralize or renationalize the economic system, or you globalize the political system. And I think we should do the latter thing. I think you have to think about some sort of universal basic income, maybe distributed by the World Bank to people who are now still living in extreme poverty, because then people will remain in their own countries and build their own economy, as opposed to taking a very dangerous journey across the Mediterranean.
So what would you say to the people that this focus on globalizing the economy is going to take away the autonomy of the countries? And
it already has.
Yes. Yeah.
It has been like this for decades. Yes.
So is that? But that's what they're scared of. They say that national interests are going to be sacrificed for this. For the people that say, "Oh, you're a globalist, so you're anti-nationalist." So they say that basically means that. Everything about what made our nation great is going to disappear. A lot of people that value national pride, they say all of that is going to go away. Any decisions that we could have made by the people of our country, for the people of our country, all of that is going to go away if we keep focusing on a global economy rather than a national one. How would you address those fears?
Yeah, well, like I said, you can solve this problem of imperfect, incomplete globalization in one or two ways. You can renationalize the economic system, or you can globalize the political system. And the reason why we have no say, we have no sovereignty over this economic capitalist system is because we barely even have a strong European government, but we especially don't have a strong world government that can regulate and tax the economy and redistribute wealth from rich regions in Europe, North America, and East Asia to poorer regions in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, the way we do on the national level right now. So I think once you set up this system, you can create a European or global consciousness, because national identities have been created as well. Prior to the French Revolution, the majority of the French didn't even speak French. It was mostly a Paris Revolution, and people in the countryside, either they spoke Dutch, Spanish, Italian, German, or whatever. And because once the French government set up this national educational system and national economy, people over the generations were socialized into a French national culture and embraced the French national identity. And now they take that for granted, but it used to be like this. And actually, there were a lot of counter-revolutions on the countryside led by the aristocracy against the central liberal Paris government. And people have completely forgotten about that. It has lost our collective memory, and that was basically the goal of nationalism, to create this illusion that national identities are innate as opposed to created.
I'm gonna a few comments from the live chat. Earthling Carl is saying importing millions of Africans don't help your economy. No one wants world government, and also saying he's also
nobody wanted national government 200 years ago.
Right. So, and he's also saying giving money to Africa just artificially inflates their population. Cut all foreign aid. Muscal is saying a very global economy hurts a lot of countries. For example, that's why Britain left the EU and why Americans are against free trade agreements.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in that.
Okay, go
first,
ahead.
I already mentioned the myth of high birth rates among among Muslims, which, if you look at most Muslim majority countries, the birth rates have dropped tremendously to where, with the exception of Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Afghanistan, usually most Muslims only get 1 or 2 children, 1 or 3 or something. There's been a remarkable drop in birth rates throughout the last 50 years, from like 5 children per woman to now it's less than 2.5 children per woman, and it keeps dropping every year. So
Earthling Car is saying, I said Africa, not Muslim countries.
Okay, yeah, Africa is a little bit of a different story. The birth rates are still much higher than in the rest of the world, but they are still dropping, and they will slowly drop throughout this century.
He says, educate women.
Earthling Car is saying Africa is set to add 1.3 billion people in the next 50 years. Is that true?
Yeah. Right now it's like 1 billion. It will probably increase to, like, I think to 3 billion, I think. But you have to look at this in a more world historic perspective. The world population in this century will increase from 6 billion in 2000 to 11 billion in 2100. That's not even a doubling of the population. While in the 20th century, world population increased from almost 2 billion to in 1900 to 6 billion in 2000. That's
but I think the concern from people like Earthling Carl is that the populations are not increasing in places where everything is better, and they are increasing where people have cultures and value systems that are problematic. So the fear is that the shift in the population globally is going to be in the direction where there's going to be more of people with inferior cultures and with inferior value system. So in a world where it's moving in that direction, you probably don't want to be for a globalist worldview, because the globe is not going in the direction that you want. So you probably want to stay in your own nation and, maybe create some walls around you because everything else is burning around you. I think, by the way, Earthling can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but go on.
In the short run, that's true. But if you empower women, if you give them access to birth control, or if you
educate women,
education, if you give them economic tools like education or universal basic income or shelter, if you give them that, and because the reason why people adhere to these superstitious beliefs is because of poverty, because they are illiterate, and they don't know any better. If you create an educational system through a world government and empower people with economic tools, then they will be socialized in secular humanist values, because this happened in the West as well. The drop in religiousness in Europe occurred only in the 1960s, when wealth had increased and inequality was basically dropped.
Okay, by the way, we're getting a lot of interesting comments from Earth.
Okay,
he's saying that globalism is simply about replacing Europeans with the third world. I think I don't know if our friend Carl would refer it like that, but I know some people even mention like white genocide. Do you think? And I think I don't know if and I think some people see this globalism movement this as they see that there's a Jewish conspiracy behind this, and that there is an intentional. And okay, so this is the narrative. Okay, the narrative is that. And Earthling, if you could correct me if I'm misrepresenting you, right? So the narrative is that the Jewish people, and again, this is I think what Earthling call things, is that the Jewish people have their own country. It says in Israel they are creating an ethno-state, and if you look at the direction they're going, they're making like Judaism the official religion, the official language. They're making Arabs like second-class citizen, and they want, so they understand according to Earthling and other people, they understand the value of creating an ethno-state, but they are for the rest of the world, they're creating this narrative that they're globalist, and again, this is a conspiracy that they're behind globalism, popularizing globalism, right? And popularizing multiculturalism and demonizing ethno-states, demonizing people that believe in ethno-states, even though that's what they want for themselves, right? So
this is one of the founding. This is one of the founding myths.
Everything is saying stuff that if I don't know if I read it out loud, I might get this video might get removed. I don't know, because YouTube is not very smart. YouTube is like, when you read other people's comments, YouTube is gonna like, oh, this is racist. Even you read. I mean, I know Erflin himself has been dealing with his channel being removed and coming back. So I don't know if YouTube is dumb enough to remove my. Yeah, go on. But how do you respond to that?
Well, this is one of the founding myths of fascism. The idea that our world was created through a Jewish conspiracy, and I can get the rationality behind the rationality of that, because Jews never really felt home in any nation state, because they were discriminated against so much by Christian or Islamic majority. So of course it makes sense that they were one of the founders of cosmopolitanism, of the idea that this idea of nationalism and ethno-states doesn't make any sense. It makes more sense to connect with Jews in other countries, because that's the only people with which we can form a community and who respect us. So that's and I think mostly that's a good thing. But what was the other things? They said.
What he's saying is, Armin, it's not just the Jews, it's Majid, Nabaz is an open globalist as well. But I think Erfin had this view that if the people that are globalists, even if they're not Jews themselves, they are somehow backed up by Jews. I think that's the narrative here. Yeah, but again, that's I don't know. Okay, so. But the thing is that whether we these kind of views are very common, and I think
yeah. Well, like I said, I understand why they have the impression, because
why
Jews are historically more cosmopolitan than either Christians or Muslims. So I understand why they get the impression that Jews are behind this world conspiracy against nation states, even though it's not true.
Right. The thing is that a lot of people, when they hear these comments, they don't want to engage with it. What they do is just they laugh at it. But the thing is that if you keep laughing at it without actually engaging, so with people that have these opinions, you have no idea how much this kind of opinion is gaining more and more popular, right? So I think it would be, I would be interested in talking to Erfin Call and talking about his views on our channel. I don't know if yeah, and have a discussion with him and see where he's getting these views from, right? He's saying it's all facts. So yeah, we could. Do you think it would be a good idea to? I don't know if he would be up for that, but I think it would be interesting if if I have a discussion with him on this, if he's willing. Yeah.
I think it would be a good idea to maybe then I can understand the rationality behind this. And then, well, because like Jordan Peterson says, in order to give a very strong argument, you need to understand the argument of your opponent and make that argument as strong as you possibly can, so that you can then strengthen your own argument against that.
Right. Daniel is saying the U.S. has already spent tons of our tax. I think it's OUR, not our tax money, starting war in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, causing refugees. I don't know. I do think that we can't just blame everything on the West.
What's to some extent the United States has created its own problem with, especially with the Iraq War, and with basically destroying the Iraq state and completely destabilizing the society. So there's some truth to it, and the Shia government that discriminated against Sunnis. So that the result of that was that some Sunnis were attracted to ISIS. So I can get behind the rationality of that, even though it doesn't determine people to be. Just because you are discriminated against because of your religion does not determine you to become a fundamentalist or an Islamist. Right. They could have created a socialist movement or a liberal movement and demand and resist the Shia government in the name of human rights. That's really the fatal flaw in this kind of progressive leftist thinking, is that even though U.S. foreign policy did play a part in the creation of ISIS, it didn't determine so much people to join it. They could have chosen another ideology to make that point.
Irfan Call is also asking if I'm a fan of Israel. The thing is that there are a lot of things that Israel do that I support, and there's a lot of things Israel does that I hate. I don't think I'm very much against, right? So I don't think you could bundle any country into being completely supportive of or being against. There are some countries that you're more against, and you support less, and there are some countries that have, I don't know, so. Depends on exactly which actions of Israel you're referring to. For example, Tassin just mentioned, daily reminder that Israel supports the MEK, which is a very dangerous cult. So that would be one action that I would call out if as Israel. That's actually them supporting a terrorist organization. There's a lot of I acknowledge that Israel is one of the most secular and liberal countries in the region compared to all their neighbors, so that's a good thing. The bad thing is that theocrats are gaining grounds in Israel. They're becoming more and more popular. It's becoming more of a theocracy. Religion is becoming more and more influential in Israel, which is really bad.
Israel used to be dominated more by left-wing labor parties and the Zionist labor movement, which was also active in the United States. And Noam Chomsky was in his youth was active in the Zionist labor movement, and he once said that to standards that's to the current what is now called Zionism, thanks to the influence of right-wingers like Netanyahu, we were the Zionist labor movement that Chomsky was a member of was basically anti-Zionist compared to what Zionism means today. So Israel has changed a lot throughout the decades for the worst.
Right. All right.
I think we need to know more about human behavior. I think we need to study ourselves and understand ourselves and our motivations and our, we're very fallible. But if we understand it and accept it, maybe we could make some progress.
So two questions, one from Earthling Call and one from Moose Gal. Earthling Call is, and after this we'll end it here. What do you guys think? Unless you have anything else you want to add. After this, two questions. I'll add, should I? Okay, Renzo, do you have anything else to add before I add these two questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Earthling Call is asking, and then is it okay for Israel to label illegals as infiltrators and kick them out, plus building a massive fence to block them? So I think what he's referring to is the hypocrisy of people that back Israel when it comes to them securing their borders, while saying that Europe should be accepting in more refugees. So that's what he's referring to. So he's saying, do you think it's okay for Israel to have giant walls and treat people illegals like that? What do you guys say to that?
Well, the situation is a little bit different because Israel is a very tiny country, and as opposed to the European Union and North America, where they have a pretty vast space of land to kind of spread refugees out over the country. So, in that kind of situation, I can understand it, even though I don't think it's the best solution in the long run. But in the short run, I understand it.
Lois, do you have any responses to that?
Well, yeah, Israel is, as you say, very, very tiny, and also surrounded by people, many of whom would like for Israel to not exist. And so they have to take precautions that, like, the U.S. wouldn't have to, because it's huge and across the ocean. So those situations can't really be compared.
Right. I think what I wouldn't support when it comes to Israel is the fact that they're moving into the direction of creating a two-tier. It seems like it. They're moving into the direction of creating a two-tier citizenship. Like, they don't seem like it. They don't say that openly right now, and right now Arabs living in Israel, so far, give or take, enjoy the same rights as everybody else. But it does seem that. So it does seem like Israel wants to, like a lot of people in Israel want to move towards that direction. And again, given that the two-state solution doesn't seem likely, the one-state solution doesn't seem likely because of Israel doesn't want to have all of a sudden a lot more Arabs become citizens, right? Then the Jews become a minority in their own country, so they don't want the one-state solution at all. And the two-state solution is impossible because of all the settlements, right? The settlements have made the two-state solution impossible. So the only thing left would be an apartheid state, right, situation, right? And that's unsustainable. And that's something I don't support either, right? And every time I criticize Israel, a lot of people mention Hamas and how Hamas is a lot worse, which is true. If Hamas had the same amount of weaponry and firepower Israel did, there wouldn't be any Israel right now, right? Every single Jew right now would be killed. But being better than Hamas is such a low barrier that you shouldn't be proud of being better than Hamas. So you should be. You should be able to point out everything Israel has done wrong and call them out on it without saying, well, they're better than Hamas. Well, congratulations for being better than Hamas. What, do you want a medal for that? Right. And then last question for Muscal is, why are humans so hyped on borders? I hear a lot of people say borders are arbitrary and that's why we need free trade. So if humans are concerned with having borders, why do the globalists give us free trade? I'm not sure if I understand this question. The thing is that... Well, yeah, go on.
That's part of human nature. That's another thing that I think, if we understood human nature better, we started out as tribes, and tribes warred against each other, and quite honestly, chimpanzee tribes have wars with each other for territory. And so there are certain things that are sort of built into us evolutionarily that we need to understand better. Right. And yeah, borders are probably artificial. Well, they are. And they change, or they used to change very, very rapidly. But we have to look at the long run too. If okay, say you go back to nationalism and everybody isolates themselves, what's going to be the result in a few years? Wars? You know, I mean, we need to understand ourselves, which we don't right now.
I mean,
yeah. Well, this is one of Yuval Noah Harari's claims in *Sapiens*. Is one of the kind of one of the running through lines throughout history is the increasing unification of mankind. We used to live in small bands of hunter-gatherers of like 100 people. Then, after the Neolithic Revolution and invention of agriculture, we transitioned to larger tribes. Then we created city-states, kingdoms, empires, and now we have a global economic system without a global political system. So we are actually very close at uniting humanity. I think this is just the final step or transition or final hurdle that we have to overcome, and it won't be easy, but I think we can make it, and I think in 100 or 200 years it will be completely. It might be completely common sense to have a world government without borders and without this huge economic, political, and ideological disparities.
Right. So, let me know what you think about this. This is my last statement, but before we go, you know, when it comes to uniting people, the greatest thing that unites people is hate, right? It's hating something else to unite people against some force outside. And this is not necessarily a bad thing, because there are things that do deserve to be hated, right? There are so many negative things. The problem is that when people unite with each other against something else, unfortunately, that something else needs to have agency for people to feel like their unity, for people to feel like they're getting together for something worth uniting over. So when you uniting against global warming, uniting against disease, uniting against certain bad ideas, bad values, bad culture, these would be good, but unfortunately none of these things have any agency. So, I mean, Erfling Call is saying people unite to love. Yeah, but to love something, you have to hate something else. Like, hate and love. Yeah. Like, for you to hate something, you hate things that challenge the things you love. And when you love something, whatever is a danger to the things you love, you hate those things, right? So, but the thing is that out-group that are marked as the enemy that people usually unite around, it needs to have agency for people to feel like their union makes sense. It has to be a group of people, and even if this is why in religious groups, even things that don't have agency, when something hurts you, you give it agency. Like it's either demons or the devil or some other things with agency, because it's easier to be angry than to be depressed. Because when you're angry, there's something that you're angry of. You need to identify, and this is where a lot of the conspiracy theories come from, right? You can't just accept that something happened because it was part of a trend or because of a whole bunch of numbers and many different factors. You have to identify one person or a very small group of people where you could point to and say this was your fault. That's more easier to settle with than just being upset about the state of affairs.
Yeah, that's true. Many political entities like tribes or nation states were formed in defense against a common enemy. And I often think that's the only thing that can bring about a world government is an alien invasion, but I don't want to.
Right.
I don't.
Yes, the best thing
don't
actually.
like-
That's great. The best thing to get humanity united is to have an agent group from outside of humanity to attack us, and that would be the alien invasion.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that would get all of human. All of a sudden, everything becomes secondary. But anyways, this was interesting, and I do want to invite Irfan Kal to a discussion, maybe on Atheist Republic, or maybe as a guest on Secular Jihadists at some point, because I think he has some concerns that a lot of people want to completely dismiss or ignore or laugh at, but I think these concerns needs to be addressed. You can't ignore these concerns. So I do think that I'm going to talk to Ali, and if Irfan Kal is up for it, I would like to invite him on a podcast on Secular Jihadists. But thank you guys for coming here. This was really fun. I enjoyed talking, and let's do this again at another point. And again, a reminder to all our patrons that we are going to have more Patreon discussions going forward. So please reach out to us and take advantage of that. All right, guys, this was fun.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks ever so much.
Bye. And bye,
Yeah.
everybody in the
Bye.
live chat.
Bye.
Bye.